Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It's a beautiful Friday morning, October 23rd, 7:59 a.m. Central, just a minute before 8 o'clock. We tend to get together most Mondays through Fridays at this time on this Zoom link to visit with our distribution partners. We have affiliates, joint venture partners, financial literacy educators, and branch managers. We'll cover topics that usually are applicable to the entire spectrum. In some cases, we'll have a given topic that's specific to one subgroup. And that's what we'll have on Monday. On Monday, at the same time, we'll have a specific training for our financial literacy educators, although anyone's welcome to sit in on it. We're moving our policies from nationwide to AIG effective immediately. And we're going to talk about that on Monday. So we need everyone to get appointed through AIG. And I sent an email out to all of you this morning with specific instructions. The AIG policies, which we'll talk about Monday, still IUL, it's a non-medical underwriting. And so the turnaround is immensely quicker. We're turning policies around in 5 to 10 days versus quite a bit longer. So we'll keep everything we've placed with Nationwide, we're in good standing with them, but we definitely need to get you appointed for AIG because it's going to provide a better experience for your clients and get you paid a lot quicker. So take a look at that email and we'll talk about that Monday morning. Now, today we have a different topic. Today's topic, which was emailed out yesterday, and I have it shared here on the screen, is let's start by talking about the problem, and then together we'll vet through a solution. So what's the problem? The problem is that many pre-launch and early stage businesses lack the credibility needed to optimize their access to capital. They're not credible enough. Well, what is something that would make them not credible enough? And you and I both know different sources of capital have different underwriting criteria. So there's not a uniform set of you must do this to get funding. That's not the case at all. But what are some examples that you've seen of businesses that don't appear credible? I'll tell you some of what I see. There are some, and we can go through this list kind of in random order. Some simply don't have a bank account. They don't have a business bank account. Well, guess what? Typically, for most sources of funding, business funding, they're going to wire the money into your business bank account. So if you don't have a business bank account, in many cases, they're not going to wire you the money. You're not going to get funded, even though you got approved. So that makes sense, right? Okay, well, I need to have a business bank account. We're not going to be a bank, but this is an example of a problem of credibility. Others use Gmail or Yahoo. They're using commercial grade email addresses at Yahoo, at Gmail, at American Online, and they don't realize that doesn't make them look very credible in the eyes of lenders. So is that a requirement for all sources of capital? Of course not. Is it a best practice? Oh, it is. It is. What's enough? And again, I'm not talking about the solution yet. Right now, we're going through the problem. We'll come to the solution in a minute. We'll put our heads together for the solution. Website. Do you have a website? No, don't have a website. Well, we're not in the business of selling websites. Some of you all are, which is fine, but we're not in the business of selling websites. But some lenders, not all, actually go to the client's website to see if everything adds up. Is what they say that they do what they do? Is their address what they show their address to be? And so forth. So a credibility factor, a best practice, is to have a website. Some don't have an office phone number. And those of you, I see Brian on here and Annette and myself and the rest of us that are actively mentoring clients, it's really interesting. So you'll have a scheduled call with a client that's already enrolled in the program. I'm not talking about a sales call or a prospect call, client. And you call them and they don't pick up because they don't recognize the number. And so it's like, how are you running your business? You screen clients to see if you recognize the number before you take a client's call. I realize I'm not a client, but they're just using their cell phone and looking down at caller ID and deciding, do they want to answer their phone or not? That's not a credible way to run a business. You need to have a business phone number. Now, if you want to have it forwarded to your cell phone, that's fine, or forwarded to an answering service, or even if it drops into voicemail with a nice message. But that's a credibility factor. You should not be using your cell phone number as your business number. It may be forwarded to it. So that's another element of credibility. What's another one? You need to have a commercial office address to look best. So does that mean home-based businesses can't get funded? Of course not. Again, there's no general rule that all these boxes have to be checked, but we're talking about best practices. And so with that being said, having an office address, a true commercial address, makes a difference in some sources of capital, especially in building business credit under the EIN. Well, are all commercial addresses equal? No, they're not. And I've seen it. People will go get a virtual address through a Regis. And you've got one address that's used by dozens or hundreds or potentially thousands of different businesses. None of us are naive to think that the lending world doesn't pick up on that. We have a Regis address for one of our businesses. We've had it for about 3 years, and it's 6136 Frisco Square Boulevard, Suite 400. So do you think that we're the only business using Suite 400? No. They have many, many, many virtual office clients that use Suite 400. You know what that does to the credibility? It waters it down, it waters it down, it waters it down, because you've got a bunch of different businesses using the same address. So having a commercial address adds to the credibility of a client, but having an address that a bunch of other people use doesn't so much add to the credibility. Again, we're going to get to the solution in a second. We're talking about the problem, and the problem is we're seeing a lot of small businesses not being set up credibly. And many of you have seen the 27 mistake video, right? And that gets to it addresses many of these points. What I'm going to propose to you and get your feedback today is how we might better be able to solve that problem for more clients. Of course, if you want to get business funding, you need to have a business. And this isn't always obvious. And I was talking to a client 2 days ago. I think I've been made reference to it on yesterday's training. He hasn't started his business yet, but he wants a business loan right now. Well, sir, you can't get a business loan if you don't have a business, amazingly enough, right? You have to have a business to get a business loan. But some people don't get that, or they don't have that pulled together. We talk about the importance of tracking revenue and expenses properly using software like QuickBooks. It doesn't have to be QuickBooks, but something where you can produce interim financial statements. So you have some reports to manage by, right? So the absence of that is both going to weaken the small business's probability of success, and it's going to impact their access to capital. Do all sources of capital require interim financial statements? Of course not. There's not any one requirement that applies to all sources of capital, but it certainly is a best practice. And then down here with the business credit card, which we've recently talked about, having a true credit card in your EIN, under your EIN, not under your social security number, that's not personally guaranteed is a good thing. So that way, when you're using the credit card, you're using your business credit card for business expenses. If you were to get audited by the IRS, that's what they want to see. It becomes much more, you're going to receive a lot more scrutiny if you're paying for business expenses personally and then somehow reimbursing yourself. So the bottom line is a lot of these early stage small businesses are lacking the credibility factors that they could benefit from. So you and I, and when I say you, I mean you, Anna Marie, and you, Anthony, and you, Barry, and you, Brian, and you, Charlotte, and you, Clarissa, and all of you that are on the call this morning, we can do a couple different things. We even had a training on the whole ecosystem model where you could, as a branch manager especially, you should be interfacing with the CPAs in your community, with the office commercial office landlords and co-working spaces, with the website developers, all the different business to business professionals that you could refer to and they could refer to you. But what we're leaning towards, and we've not made the decision, but it's what we're here to talk about today, and I'd like you to use the Q&A box, question and answer box in Zoom to provide feedback, is we're thinking about starting a virtual incubator. So this would not be a requirement, but for those small businesses that don't have the credibility factors, we could help them with the following. We can help them get filed. We could help them get their business filed. Now, if you go in order, almost every small business goes in the wrong order, and these are not listed in the right order. If you want to start a business, is the first thing that you do to go file with the Secretary of State? It is not. The first thing you need to do is actually secure an office address, because we need all the addresses to match with the state, with the federal government for your EIN, with your bank. So frankly, the first thing we need to do is secure an office address. Once we have a commercial office address, then we go file to form the business. Could you do it in the other order? You could, but now you got to go pay another filing fee and change it. And then what happens? The first address that you file a business under is what's picked up by like Dun & Bradstreet. So now your Dun & Bradstreet profile's off. Can you fix it? Of course, but it just doesn't make sense to keep changing things. It adds so much work and risk of not getting everything done. So in truth, what we propose to do with a virtual incubator for the early stage businesses is frankly start by giving them an office address. What I said earlier is true. Giving a bunch of small businesses the same address, even if it's a legitimate commercial address, is a flawed strategy, because lenders pick up on that. Dun & Bradstreet pick up on that. It's like, how in the world do you have the same address as all these others? So some of you have been here to our office. We lease an entire floor. So what we're considering doing is setting up a virtual incubator, but giving specific suites to each client. Now, they won't come here to work, but for example, Peggy would have suite 205, and Robert would have suite 206. And Shai would have suite 207, and Tony would have suite 208, and Toussaint would have suite 209, Travis 210. You see the pattern. Each business would literally have a unique address. Now, it'd all be on the same floor of the same building, but it's a commercial office building, right? We lease from the Chamber of Commerce. This is a 100-year-old building. It was gifted to the chamber in 1965 from a bank. This used to be a big bank building. And so what we're wanting your feedback on is, what are your thoughts about these ideas? So go ahead and start giving us some feedback. And again, constructive criticism is great. So what we would do for early stage entrepreneurs that need the help, first, we would give them an office address with a unique suite number, and it would be here in our building. Well, you might say, well, what if they're in Wyoming or California? Why would they want a Texas address? Well, I'm going to give you some really good reasons why that is. And you certainly can form a business in a different state than you live in. But I'll come back to that in a second. So they would get a true commercial office address that's unique to them. Then we would help them form their business. And we're not charging them extra. This is not like we're competing with LegalZoom and charging them $99 to go file something they could do on their own. It's not about that at all. But then once they have the office address, help them form their business. Now, why? I'm going to go back to what I introduced a second ago, and I had planned to even show you on the screen, but I don't have it pulled up. We have built the ecosystem here that we're encouraging many of you to do in your communities. And so if you become a branch office manager, I think you probably want to replicate this in your area. But for example, we have a lender here that is a regional lender, only lends to small businesses in, I think, a 5 or 7 county area. That's all they're allowed to do. They will loan up to $250,000 for early stage businesses that can't get funded elsewhere. So that same lender, if you approached us from California or Pennsylvania or Florida, we wouldn't even consider it because some lenders have defined geographic areas. We have a very good relationship with that lender. And quite frankly, one of our founders is an executive at that lender. That's kind of off the record, but the bottom line, and they'll still have to meet the underwriting criteria, but anywhere from 30,000 to 250,000 is available through this special fund, essentially. And so we can't guarantee that everyone will be approved, but there's a high approval rate. It's a true low interest term loan with low payments because it's spread out over a period of time. Well, sure, you wouldn't have to be part of our virtual incubator to access that, but you would need to be in the 5 or 7, whatever geographic area that they cover. Most of you aren't, of course. So this office address and forming the business together is going to open up some sources of capital that's not available elsewhere. Now, there certainly could be some special loan programs in your community that we don't even know about, right? And so if you're a branch manager, that's what you're doing. What we're doing here is creating a replicatable system that when and if you decide to open a branch in your area, we would duplicate this model in your backyard. But let's continue on. We will provide them a true office phone number. Now, some of you are asking about the pricing. I don't know. We're still working on it. We want it to be as low as possible. This is going to be through our 501c3. This is not a profit center for us. We'll have to cover our cost, of course. But on the phone number, it will be a true business phone number under their name that's listed to directory assistance. That builds credibility. That increases access to capital. And then they can answer, the phones can be forwarded to their cell phone or can drop into voicemail or it can be answered live. Again, we're not pretending to be an answering service or a virtual office, but the bottom line is these are credibility factors that positions the small business for a better probability of success just because they look more like a real business to the outside world and also increases their access to capital. We'll help them get their EIN. And of course, that's free and easy to do. But again, if we're going to take them through this virtual incubation, getting their EINs necessary because you can't open a business bank account without the EIN. Now, again, we would file the EIN off of the address that matches with the formation documents. Now, keep in mind, we're not becoming some partial owner of these entities. Some incubators literally become a minority owner of every business they work with. We're not wanting to be that intrusive, so don't misread that. They would own the business. The EIN would be tied to their business, not to us. We are not professional website developers. Some of you are, and that's fine. We're not going to compete with you, but we will get their URL, their domain, which is necessary so they have an email address, and we're going to get them a one-page website up. Now, if they want to do more, then you all can help them, those of you that do websites. But we need to at least have a web presence. Why? Because some lenders, not all, but some lenders will go to the client's website and see if it just adds up. Does it match what they're saying on the application with what they're telling the world through their website? And of course, then that allows us to create branded email addresses. So no longer are they using these embarrassing Gmail and Yahoo and American Online. You don't run a business by using a non-commercial, a personal email address. It doesn't matter how fancy you put before the ampersand. It can't be, mybusinessinc@gmail.com and think that you look credible. You don't. So that would be included. The mail service is not a real big deal. It's just whatever mail came in to their virtual office would, of course, be forwarded to them because they need to get their mail and they're not working at this location. We do have a business banker that is going to work with us in a very strategic way to help them get their business bank account open and does provide access to funding options that wouldn't be available otherwise. And we've talked about this in other trainings. Having a good relationship with your business banker, so you know who they are, they know who you are. You can call them up. If you have a question, issue, you're not calling into some darn 1-800 number and seeing which third world nation rep picks up the phone. I mean, you're talking to your business banker. So as we talk about building an advisory team for small businesses as a best practice, we'll help facilitate that. Again, we won't be on the bank account. We're not going to be intrusive, but we're going to put the pieces together in this virtual incubation model that helps the business be successful. Every small business needs a CPA. Let's all say it together. Every small business needs a CPA, because you're going to have to file tax returns, and hopefully you're doing some things successfully so you're profitable and you're paying taxes, right? So with that being said, we have a CPA firm, very credible firm, that has agreed to work with our clients. I just talked to her last evening to confirm it, one of the principals. And then, every business needs to be using QuickBooks or some similar software to track revenue and expenses. So the business can do it themselves, or they can outsource it. Of course, the CPA firm can provide that resource if needed. But essentially, Linda is the CPA. She'll work with each of the incubator clients, I guess you'll say, and help them decide, do they want to do QuickBooks themselves or outsource it? It's not some sales pitch or some way to try to upsell them on things. But what you and I are doing is providing a virtual incubation package to help these early stage small businesses become credible, because it's better for their business and it's better for them to be able to access capital. Is this required? Absolutely not. This will be a standalone offering that those small businesses that need this assistance can access it. And if they don't, no problem. So don't think that we're changing anything. The access to capital program remains exactly as it is. The Capital to Ready program remains exactly as it is. And then we know that a lot of small businesses are operating off of a very tight shoestring. So what can we do to help them? We can get them the business credit card that we've recently talked about. We can get them into that new loan fund. Well, it's not a new loan fund. The loan fund's been around for decades, but the loan fund that we talked about that's geographically limited to our geographic area, so they would have access to. And we can even plug them into the opportunity fund if need be. The typical question that we're getting is, what's the cost? I don't know yet. We're still piecing all of this together, and we'll get pricing on the phone aspect here soon. We want to keep it very, very affordable for small businesses. I used to work in an incubator at a college, so it wasn't like I had an office as an incubator client. I worked for the college in the incubator. So we did a number of these things, and it's really marvelous. Normally, a new start business will plug into an incubator and then stay in the incubator usually 12 to 24 months, and then they move out on their own. There's not a requirement to do that, but that's usually the scope, the time period that they need the extra assistance to get their feet on the ground and get up and going. So we certainly want to do a revenue share with you, and we'll figure out the packaging. But let me get over to your questions, comments, concerns. And again, this is really where you have input into the design of this. I realized that when we emailed it out, we labeled it as a business startup package, but the further discussion we had in the afternoon yesterday, this was sent midday, was that let's really do this on a grander scale and set it up as a virtual incubator. And that's the direction we're leaning. We met with the post office yesterday, figuring out how to address all these unique addresses, because we don't want them to have one address. They won't have our address. They'll have each participant or each client or each tenant will have a unique address. Okay, so let's get into your Q&A and make sure that we're incorporating all the thoughts. So Yolanda says, great idea. This is what she tells her clients to do when they start their business. And that's fine. So Yolanda, if your clients know to do these things, which we're already teaching them in the 27 mistakes, and you're helping them do these things, that's fine. We're not going to compete with you, and it's not competition. But just make sure that you understand some of the nuances. For example, if you're telling them to get an office address, make sure that it's a commercial office address, and you want to please make sure that it's a unique office address. Don't let them fall into the trap of paying some fee of $30, $50, $100 a month and getting a shared office address that does not carry the same credibility. Okay, Clarissa asked about the cost, and we don't know. We're putting that together, and by November 1st, we'll have this ready to roll out and price, but we want to keep it very, very affordable. It's not a profit center. All right, Anna Marie asked a really good question. This will be for clients, and we're going to continue to fine tune the package based upon your input and other things. But this is going to be a package. And again, we're going to call it a virtual incubation. We're going to become a virtual incubator. We'll join the National Association of Incubators, whatever that's called, and it'll be a package. So what we don't really want to do, Anne Marie, is take on clients into the incubator that's midstream. And that's her question. So what if they've already formed their business somewhere else? They wouldn't be eligible because it becomes a mess, right? So now they're formed in Virginia or Kentucky. Now their addresses are off. They're Dun & Bradstreet's probably screwed up. So we'll guide them and advise them on how to address those things through the Access to Capital or Capital Ready program. The incubator is going to be crisp and clean. It'll be brand new startup businesses that's going to go through the sequence, which isn't listed in order here, that's doing the full package. We don't want the drama of dealing with unknowns. And so if they're already a registered business, then they certainly can enroll in the Access to Capital or Capital Ready, but they wouldn't be a good prospect for the incubator package. We need to take them from step one all the way through to make sure everything's done perfectly right. Okay, so thank you for that, Anna Marie. Mr. Barnes says he has things for his business, all these things. Excellent, excellent. So that means that you're well positioned for access to capital. And I'm not here trying to pitch any of you on this package. I'm just simply asking for your feedback of what you think the need and the receptiveness would be in the marketplace. But in your case, you'll continue to go through the funding process. Mr. Barnes, obviously you don't have a need for this package, nor am I trying to pitch the package to you. Barry says, this is an incredible offer to small businesses. 99% of them don't know this. Okay, so he's very complimentary. Thank you. And again, if they just need bits and pieces, they can go to a CPA or go to an attorney or go to a website developer. That's fine. We just want to have a very structured, consistent, affordable package to help early stage small businesses. Peggy asked, will there be a flyer? Yeah, we'll create a flyer and add a page on the IIMFL website that captures this once we're flushed through. Most importantly, what I'm wanting to do is get feedback from all of you of, are we on the right track? Is there anything missing? Is there anything that we didn't think about? But we'll certainly want to promote this because I think it's very valuable. Now, in addition to this, could they go ahead and enroll with you for the Capital Ready 2.0 or the Access to Capital? Of course. This is a standalone offering that doesn't compete with that. So notice we've resisted the urge to say, oh, we'll help you build your business credit. Well, we're a big believer in that, but that's already covered. That's already available to them. We want this to just be a standalone offering for those early stage businesses that needs the foundation to be able to be successful. So thank you, Peggy. Shai says, what if they already have started the business with it? Yeah, so if they've already started, that's fine. You can still enroll them in the Access to Capital or the Capital Ready 2.0. We'll still help them with the capital raise. We'll still guarantee them a $100,000 capital raise, but they wouldn't be accepted into the incubator. This would be for a brand new startup entity following our model from beginning to end. Brian asked a really good question. What if they have their own website or CPA? And that's fine. What we're wanting to do is create a package. We're not here to sell a la carte services and try to upcharge them. So there would be a flat fee. But if they say, oh, we already have a website, then great. then that saves us time and effort and expense. They already have a CPA, great. So that's a great question, Brian. Yeah, we're not trying to force them in to taking, I guess, full advantage of this incubator package. It's just going to, everything that's really needed to be there will be available to them. But yeah, if they have their own CPA or have their own website, that's fine. The infrastructure though, because here's what I know. Here's what I know more than anything else. The office address is key. It's key. It's key. Why is it key? Because you have to have a commercial office address to look credible for many sources of capital. And then secondly, we have a source of funding that's only available in a narrow geographic area. And it's like a slam dunk. No, I can't guarantee everyone will get $250,000. But this, I know that they are soliciting small businesses to apply because they have more money to lend. It's a nonprofit, right? It's not a traditional bank. They have more money to lend than they have applicants. They're out pleading for people to apply for money, but you have to be in their geographic area or you just won't be considered. And again, I don't know, maybe there's something like this in your backyard. You could set up a branch office and take care of it yourself. I don't know, but I know that it exists here. I know that there's grant funds that we can take a new start business, help them hire employees, and the grant will pay those employees for a period of time, 3 to 6 months. So that small business owner can have employees working for them full time and have no labor expenses for 3 to 6 months. But that's a specific offering that's available in a given geographic area. It happens to be available here. I'm not saying that's not available where you're at. I don't know. It varies by geographic area. You need to figure that out. But I know it works here. But it only works here for one reason. We've got to match up. The office address has to be in the right geographic area. And then, of course, everything else has to match up to that. All right. Thank you, Brian, for asking. Barry says he's on board, and thank you. So as soon as we're ready, we'll let everyone know. And let me go ahead and take another step. Let me stop the share for a second. I'm going to show you this special fund source of capital because I'm not blowing smoke, and I think it'll awe you. So let me go ahead and pull that up. And you can contact them directly or whatever. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but if you're not in the area, but I'm going to show it to you now. All right. So the Chapman Loan Program, this is outstanding. This is what exactly I was referring to. And again, this isn't our program. It's through the East Texas Regional Development Corporation. They have a specific area. And so you can look it up. I'll give you the highlights, but this is something that would be available to participants in this virtual incubator. So they can get loan proceeds for fixed assets, new construction, renovations, lease property, equipment, inventory, working capital, even to provide the equity injections. What do you know? If we go apply for an SBA loan, will the SBA loan cover 100%? No, the SBA is going to require some equity contribution. A lot of these entrepreneurs don't have any equity to put into it. The Chapman Loan Program can even provide the equity injection, man. This is huge. This is the missing link for a lot of these small businesses. So you can go through and you can click on all these. You can go to etrdc.com, Chapman Loan Program. It's under the, so you can go to their main website. Again, this is not a secret. Any small business can go apply for this. This isn't exclusive to us, but it is exclusive to the geographic area. It talks about how the loan program works. Borrows injection can be as low as 10%, but as I mentioned, they can be stacked up there. Eligible. This is what I wasn't blowing smoke, right? Who can be eligible for this? You have to be in the East Texas region, and it has to be in one of these counties. I said 5 or 7. Let's see if I was right. 1 county, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I apologize. I was way off. You got to be in one of those 14 county areas. We're in Wood County, by the way. So anyone doing the virtual incubator, guess what? They're in Wood County. Does that matter if they live in Chicago, Illinois? No, it doesn't matter. Does it matter if they end up opening other locations in other areas? No, because the business is based in Wood County. And then we get to the ripe one. How much money? Anywhere from 30,000 to 250. Now, again, they're making reference to the owner having injected 10%, but there's ways to finesse that. So we won't address that here on the webinar. But the bottom line is loans from 30,000 to 250. And again, this is a nonprofit. It's tax funded. It's the real deal. So why do I bring this up? Because anyone going through the incubator would I shouldn't say would qualify. They could apply for this. If you're not in the geographic area, you couldn't even apply for this. And I'm telling you, they've got more money than they're able to lend out. Okay, so let's get back to your questions. Yeah, and Monique's talking about that she has a company that she uses for her phones, and that's fine. And we're going to put together a package for the incubator clients, and if they're part of the incubation, that they'll get the incubator, they'll get the phone line for free. We're not going to upsell them. We're going to pay for it. But you're right. There's a number of different resources that are out there that for clients that are not going through the incubator that they could use, including what Monique uses. James says, excellent. Let me know when we get the price. Peggy says, this is something that is so missing with new startups. It certainly is. Toussaint says, aren't Regis addresses the same as shared office addresses? Well, with Regis, most people have a virtual office with Regis like we do, separate from where we're at. We have a true physical lease where I'm sitting right here, but in Frisco, Texas, we have a Regis lease. We've had it for 3 years, and it's just a virtual office address. It's the address I told you, 6136 Frisco Square Boulevard, Suite 400, Frisco, Texas, 75034. But we have Suite 400, as do everyone else. That does not give you the credibility that you want. You need to have a distinct suite number, which means you have a distinct address that other people aren't using, because people aren't fools. Just because you come up with some, the ability that your friend, the barber, says, well, you can use my address, and here you have some unrelated entity using that same address, and that address is already coded to that barber. It doesn't add the same credibility as having a unique address. Not all small business, a lot of small business owners are happy working from home. That's great. We're not saying change that. We're saying it would be really helpful if you had a commercial office address, because there's some sources of capital. If you don't have a legitimate commercial office address, you're not going to get funded from those sources. Not for all sources, for those. But you're right, Toussaint. Shared office addresses and virtual offices at Regis are the same. And I can give you a quick aside, and I'll get back on track. When we first formed one of our companies, now I've personally banked with Chase for over a decade with a good relationship. Formed a new entity, had at that time, our office was in a co-working space. Now, we leased a standalone office within it. So we weren't like just at a desk with a file cabinet. We had a true door lock. It was exclusively our area for our employees, but it was within a co-working space. And Chase denied us a bank account because that address was flagged as red flag. So even though as a society, especially before the pandemic, there's been this move towards co-working and shared office space, the lending world often sees it as high risk. And that's why we're positioning this to not be shared office addresses. This will not be a shared office address. Each participant would have their own suite number. Okay, so rolling along. Shai says I answered her question. And Brian mentions, yeah, so could financial literacy educators do this? Sure. I mean, anyone that's running a business should set their business up to look credible, especially if they're trying to access capital, because different sources of capital have different underwriting criteria, but credibility factors matter. And so what we're doing here is, instead of just talking to them about the 27 mistakes that often get businesses declined, offering to help them if they would like. But again, it's not a pressure. It's not a shell game of, oh, we only taught you about what you need to know, so you'd come be a participant in the virtual office space. We don't really care. We're just simply making a resource because we see the needs out there. We're not going to do a la carte. So it's just going to be that package. And we're still figuring out what that package is. And that's why we're discussing it this morning. But if they just need a website, they can go to Travis or the rest of you that develop websites. That's fine. We're not going to sell websites. We're not going to charge them for a website. We're not going to charge them for a phone line. We're not going to have any separate fees. We're just able to package it together and make it crazy low affordable so they get everything that they need. Shouldn't say everything that they need, the foundation of what they need. Doug says, great idea. Thank you, sir. Brian suggests 2 versions, the incubator deal, which we're talking about, and then the educational course. Yeah, so the 27 mistakes that we teach is not just a funnel into the virtual incubator that we plan on launching. It's what they need to know, and they could go become credible however they want. It's really up to them. They could just go lease their own office or go buy an office building if they want. But having a commercial address is really important that a lot of people are coming up short on. But I'm with you, Brian. We're going to educate. We're not going to sell. We're going to educate. And if they would like to take advantage of the virtual incubator, then they can certainly apply for it. Charlotte mentions, the addresses in Texas. Is that a problem? Well, there's a large number of businesses moving to Texas because of the low taxes and the business-friendly environment. Not unlike a lot of small businesses have formed in Nevada or in Delaware, for example. So I don't see that as a problem. I think what is important, I do think this is important, wherever you register your business, your primary business address ideally would be in the same state, because we see some lenders see that as a red flag. So like you and I could go form a new business right now and say, oh, we want it to be formed in Wyoming because there's some certain privacy provisions for Wyoming businesses that aren't available elsewhere. Well, that's fine, but if our business address isn't also in Wyoming, then we're losing credibility. Well, you'd say, well, yeah, there's a company in Wyoming that'll help me form my corporation and they'll give me address to use. Great. Is it a unique commercial address? No. It's a shared address. You're losing credibility points. But yeah, we don't work for the state of Texas, and we're not trying to attract new businesses to the state of Texas for any reason other than very transparently what we're discussing here is that it works. And of course, I can go back to our website and anyone that wants to speak with us. IIMFL is our website, and you can go to the contact page, and you're more than welcome to contact us. So for instance, our suite is 200. Clients wouldn't have suite 200. It's already taken. But guess what's available? 201, 202, 203, and so forth. Thank you, Mr. Boyser. So Charlotte asked, do you have to have a Texas address to do this? Well, if you're operating a branch, and Charlotte, you're a branch manager, you may want to replicate this system, and we can help you replicate the system for your branch in your community. We can only set it up in our community because we have the bank, which I can look out my window that's willing to work with our clients. I've got the CPA that's behind me. I can't see visibly, but we've got the ecosystem built, and what we're doing is we're plugging entrepreneurs into this ecosystem that's built. As a branch manager, Charlotte, you could build this in your community and replicate the same thing. That's really what we'd like you to do as branch office managers, is set up virtual incubators in your community. Joseph says some of his borrowers are asking for pre-approval letters. And so, yeah, some of the lenders will give pre-approval letters. We're not a lender, but some of the lenders will. Shai is so smart. She's reading between the lines. She's saying, well, what if they already started a business, but could they start a sister business or frankly, a new business and do the startup program? Of course. And that would be the simple solution. Because I just admitted, we're not going to take anyone into the incubator, the virtual incubator that's already started down the steps, because now it's an issue of cleanup and redo and rework. We don't want that. But They could just start a new business, which will help them do that does meet the criteria. Or, of course, they can just go through the Access to Capital or Capital Ready program and build out what they've already started. We're not changing or taking away what already exists. We're just trying to offer a turnkey package that is crazy cheap for those that want help building the foundation. All right, let's see. Barnes is asking, what's the timeline on receiving funds after required processes? Well, that's not a well-worded question, because what you know is we start with the 4-week curriculum. So we're building financial literacy and building the loan package. And at that point, we're matching them to the right type of capital based upon their mitigating circumstances. Some of our funding sources, which we've talked about, the business line of credit, it's funding in 1 to 3 days. And again, we've talked about this before. It was one of those funding options that went away with the pandemic. It reopened recently. We wanted to test it before we trusted it. We applied, we got approved, and they wired the funds in our bank account the next day. But the answer, of course, Barnes, is it varies, right? Depending upon the client and their circumstances. Are they ready to go to funding, or is there work that needs to be done first? Right, and again, Shai's asking, so again, if they've already started down the path, then they wouldn't be eligible. If they've already started their business, they wouldn't be eligible for the virtual incubator. We're taking fresh, new, where there's no baggage. Charlotte says, why couldn't we do this program in California? Absolutely. So as a branch manager, we will train you and support you, Charlotte, to replicate the same system in your backyard in California. Absolutely. This is what branch managers should be doing. Yep, and each state will do it. So you're in California, Charlotte, others are in other states. That's exactly right. It comes back to that ecosystem that we were talking about and pulling all the resources together to help small businesses be successful. Brian asked, would you have to pay taxes in 2 states? Well, depending upon how the business is set up is going to affect the taxation, but we have a rather clever way of doing it. So I think you'll find the answer no, but they'll work with the CPA to do their tax planning. I'm not a CPA. Charlotte says, yeah, so they could be headquartered in one state and have locations in others. That's exactly right. Clarissa's asking, is there a set amount of clients? I think we're going to probably start with 100. 100 incubator clients is what we're going to start with. We can expand indefinitely, but again, the goal is to work with those of you that want to be branch office managers in other areas and set up virtual incubators in your area. So we would have virtual incubators across the country, at least one in every state. So if you might be interested in replicating this model in your community, let us know and we'll work together to do that. All right, let's see. Joseph asked, are we able to provide pre-approval letters? Well, we don't approve anyone, so we couldn't pre-approve anyone, but the lenders, some lenders will give a pre-approval letter. Yes, Joseph, but we're not a lender, so we can't give an approval or a decline nor a pre-approval. Lenders would do that. And Robert asked for writing key person policies. Do you have to have an insurance license? Yes. And if it's not in a state that you're licensed, you'd need to be licensed in, of course. Okay, well, we ran way long. We covered a lot of information. We're still collecting feedback. And so we'll be making decisions over the next few days with the goal of launching a virtual incubator on or around November 1st. Thank you, Peggy. Yes, we'd love to work with you in setting up an incubator in your area. So thank you for your time. Oh, there's a question that just came up from Tony. What's the difference between an incubator and a virtual incubator? So the incubator that I worked at a college, we had physical offices and people office there. Well, if you're going to do that type of model, you have to have massive space, right? A warehouse or massive space. A virtual incubator, which is the path that we're on, while there are unique suites, They're not actually occupied suites, read between the lines, right? So people don't actually come to that address to work. It would fit into that category of a virtual office, but instead of just being a virtual office, it's encompassing a broader spectrum of resources that's needed to be credible for accessing capital. So you could set up an incubator in your area or a virtual incubator. We would recommend a virtual incubator because it's going to be much less costly. And so any of you that are branch managers, we need to be working together on getting replicating this model that we're putting together now in your backyard. We need to have this available in Tulsa and in Kansas City and in Milwaukee and Miami. So we're going to be looking to open a virtual incubator in every city across the country and looking for one of you to run that. Okay, so ran long, I apologize. Thank you so much for your time. We'll be back Monday morning at this time. Have a great day. Bye.